little much for me, but it was so good and it wasn't so crazy, you know?
Yeah. Well, I grew up with a lot of gambling addicts. So for that movie like really hit home for me. I was like, oh God, gee, like get anxiety.
Howard, is that his name? Howie Howard? You know, Sandler's character.
Is that what his name is, Howie?
Yeah, and he's selling diamonds on 42nd Street or whatever.
Yeah.
That's every manager in the music business. Is that guy?
Really?
A lot of them.
A bunch of gambling addicts.
That guy out there, you know, they're juggling all these balls in front of you, which is fine. I don't mind guys juggling. What I don't like is when somebody's got all these balls in the air, they're juggling in front of you, and they're like, "Charlie, I'm not juggling."
Yeah, the music business. Yeah, well.
Create a voiceover using your own voice. Customize your AI to fit any story. And connect with your audience at scale. Try voices now.
There he is. He's great in that movie.
Man, he's incredible.
You know, I never knew he could act dramatically. You know, I mean, he's always been great in comedies, but he's incredible in that movie. Incredible.
He had another one he did that was like a serious flick way back. You remember Punch Drunk Love? You ever see that one?
No, I never saw that.
That's a masterpiece.
Yeah, I never saw that.
Yeah.
But Uncut Gems, the gambling aspect of it, like that sickness, that the gambling sickness is a wild sickness.
I grew up around gamblers too.
Yeah.
Yeah, my uncle was always a big gambler, and my cousin and I spent a lot of time in casinos with him down in New Orleans on the Mississippi coast and all that.
Oh, Riverwalk gamblers.
Man, yep, exactly.
Craziest.
Man, I didn't mind. You know, he let me and my cousin run all over the place. So we were stoked.
So you like the fact that he was a degenerate.
Yeah. Oh, and anytime he won, like if he won big, we used to play his bingo. He used to run this bingo hall in New Orleans, and me and my cousin, we could both of us with those bingo daubers, we could play 9 card pages for him. We got that good that we could keep up with it. And because he was running the place, nobody in there ever said shit about me and my cousin being like, 8 and 11 or whatever. And if we hit though, it was always a good time. It was Toys R Us, fried shrimp.
With how much of privacy is being invaded online, VPNs are no longer just a nice thing to have. It's a necessity. Some people think, I don't need a VPN because I have nothing to hide. But that's exactly what data brokers want you to think, because their profits depend on you having nothing to hide. What you do online is your business. And if you want to keep it your business, you need ExpressVPN. With ExpressVPN, 100% of your online activity travels through secure, encrypted servers. It hides your IP address, so no one can use it to track and sell your online activity, and your privacy is restored. ExpressVPN is also a great tool to secure your sensitive information from hackers. If you're using public Wi-Fi, like a hotel, airport, or coffee shop, anyone can hijack your connection and access your most sensitive information. With ExpressVPN, you know that your passwords and banking info are safe and secure. ExpressVPN is the #1 ranked VPN by the experts at CNET and The Verge. And right now, you can get an amazing deal. They're offering 4 extra months free if you go to expressvpn.com/Rogan or tap the banner. If you're watching on YouTube, you can get your 4 free months by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link in the description. For some people, that's their juice, man. That's what keeps them going in life. Just that next bet, I grew up around a lot of pool halls, and when I was in my early 20s, and I was just around so many people that just live for gambling. They would go straight from off-track betting right to the pool hall, and they'd bet on anything. They'd bet on 2 raindrops coming down a window pane. They'd bet on roaches. They'd bet on anything. You name it. They'd flip a coin for 10. I saw dudes flip a coin for thousands of dollars. A guy would win a tournament. Like, this is like a famous thing in pool. Guys would win a tournament, win $10,000, flip a coin, lose the whole thing. And you had to have heart. You had to be like that was like part of the culture. You had to be willing to bet.
Right.
And everybody's always, because the only way it's fun. Yeah, the only way it's fun is if money's constantly flowing. So if someone's trying to be conservative, someone's trying to save what they call them a nit. Like, you're a nit. They didn't like you. Nobody likes a nit. Like those are the guys that get shunned by the pool hall. They're bad action.
Where'd you grow up?
Well, all over the place, really. But
Where were those pool halls?
New York. When I moved to New York when I was in my 20s, my early 20s, like 23, and that's why I got indoctrinated into pool culture.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just the most fun group of degenerates and weirdos and outcasts. And, you know, as a comedian, I never felt like I fit in normal society, you know, and then I'm around those dudes. I'm like, oh, okay, you guys are just like me. You don't fit in either. Like, you're a bunch of fucking weirdos.
Man, you know, what I just thought about, Joe, when I was on the street in New York, I played up there, and I'm sure you know, but I play on the street all day, and at first I was playing in the parks, and then I moved downtown, and I was trying to play on street corners in the villages and all that, and you're dealing with traffic and cops, and that's what drove me down into the subway platforms, and those were really competitive too. So even there, I started playing at the stations that nobody wanted, or, you know, weren't desirable, and weren't, you know, nobody's really competing for the spots or whatever. And I would do that all day, and then I would hit open mics all over the 5 boroughs every night, everywhere. And the comedy guys were always the coolest, because all of them, because we weren't in competition. You know, like, I know comedians can be really competitive on the circuit, and obviously same thing on the music side. But I ended up like playing I would open up for a lot of guys, like I'm like at the Red Door and like in the circuit there in the city and shit.
Oh, cool.
Open guys up with 2 or 3 songs or play their breaks or whatever. And, you know, all the comedy folks liked me, I think, because, you know, I wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
We were cousins or something.
Right. There's always been a relationship like that. Like Oliver Anthony was at the Mothership this weekend. And it was the first music act we've ever had perform there.
That's cool.
Yeah, you can perform there too if you ever want to, man.
I know where it's at.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
I like that you got it down there, man.
It's a great spot. 6th Street is just such a fucking wild place.
It is.
To have it right there is perfect. And to have it at the old Ritz, it's amazing. So, you know, it was great.
Is that what it is in the old Ritz?
Yeah. Yeah, we bought the old Ritz. Yeah. We have to keep the Ritz sign, because it's, you know, one of those historical buildings.
Oh, it's a great sign.
Oh, it's a great sign. It's got so much history. In the tunnel on the way to the stage, there's a big picture of Stevie Ray Vaughan on stage in 1983. Yeah.
You like SRV?
Fuck it.
Come on.
Come on, man. Come on. He's the only dude that could play Voodoo Child. Doesn't make me sick.
Man.
You know, other than Hendrix.
That's right.
2 dudes.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, Hendrix and him. I mean, other people. I'm sure other people could do it. I've never heard.
No, fuck that. Just them. Oh yeah, man.
There's certain songs that you can't fuck with. Although I did see one time, I saw Honey Honey and Gary Clark Jr. played Midnight Rider, and I didn't think anybody else could play Midnight Rider. And to hear Gary's song Midnight Rider with that, you know, like Gary's signature sound.
Oh man.
Yeah, that signature.
You seen Gary? You seen Gary live?
Oh yeah, I'm friends with Gary.
Man.
Yeah, I've seen him a bunch of times.
Yeah, I love Gary too.
I love that dude.
That guy.
He's so good.
Man, I remember.
I gave something to him. I got it.
What is it?
This is a real, genuine woolly mammoth guitar pick that is made out of woolly mammoth tusk.
Damn, that is something fierce, bud.
10,000 plus years old. That's a shout out to my friend John Reeves from the Boneyard in Alaska. I got a buddy of mine who has this spot in Alaska where they just pull all kinds of crazy mastodon, woolly mammoth, fucking cave bear, all kinds of skulls, all kinds of wild shit out of this one piece of property where a lot of animals died. And he's taken a lot of the woolly mammoth. That's where I got this too. This is a tooth. This is a tooth that was carved.
Wow.
Into a piece of art with a mammoth in it.
That's a big old goddamn tooth, son.
Yeah.
How heavy that is.
Crazy. It's crazy, right?
It's beautiful too, man.
Yeah. So that guitar pick is yours, brother.
Man, thanks, Joe.
Yeah. Any cool guys who play guitar get them on picks?
You know, I've never been good at holding a pick. So I learned how to play with my hands, and because I could never hold a pick well. But a lot of guys I know that are really great pickers, they play these really hard picks, you know, and can real precise with them. And I still can't hold them.
You learned with your fingers?
Yeah. I never held. I just couldn't hold the pick. I would try to hold it and it'd get sideways, and I never, like all this, you know, like the straight cowboy chords, you know, C, F, G, whatever. I couldn't hold any of those chords. Like when I was teaching myself, the positioning was weird for me, you know. And so like I kind of threw away the book and I did what you call choking the chicken on the fret, you know, kind of hold it like you're choking the chicken.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where I developed my style. And then I learned all the regular chords many years later. You know.
Are you totally self-taught?
Oh yeah.
Wow. When did you start?
I was 17. My mama got me a guitar out of a pawn shop in South Irving.
Wow.
This Hunter guitar.
And you just started messing around with it?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, my mom had tried to get me on the piano when I was younger, and I just couldn't focus. And, yeah, I don't know. 17 was like the right age. I needed it, you know. Started banging around on that guitar, and I mean, it must have sounded terrible. And me and my mom lived this little ass place, this tiny place. And I was like scared to play in front of her, you know. But I was at first, and I would say, "Mama, am I any good?" You know, she wasn't gonna lie to me. And she said, "Well, son, when you play, people will believe you." She wasn't gonna lie to me and tell me I was good. But she was trying to say, you know, just be honest with your music, and the rest will take care of it.
That's
So,
great advice.
yeah,
When you play, people will believe.
that's what she said. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the next time anybody believed in me wasn't until I started hitchhiking. And I remember because I've been out in California a bunch recently. And I had caught a ride with this guy. We were playing at this place called the Shanty up in Farmers Branch, Dallas Fort Worth areas years ago. And there was this witch lady they called her a witch. This kind of magic woman who had a barn out behind her house, and they called it the Shanty. And she would have people over on the weekends and just kind of any random night, travelers, misfits, whatever, back there in the barn, and everybody'd be telling stories and trading songs and, you know, taking potions, stuff like that. Long story short, this guy I met one night, his parents had worked for like Texas Instruments, and he had disowned them, you know, because his parents were like scientists, and he woke up one day as a young man and realized they were like, his parents were manufacturing like weapons, you know, and I never saw this guy again, but that was his whole deal why he left Texas.
Oh, wow.
And he was just back visiting this gal that had this shanty deal. And I talked that guy that he promised he was describing this town of Boonville, which is this community in Mendocino County, Northern California. And the way he was describing it to me in this barn or whatever, it sounded like a Garden of Eden or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I wanted so badly to go with him, and he promised me and this other guy that was playing guitar too that he would take us. And we passed out at the lady's house. When we woke up that next morning, he was still there. And I was like, "Man, you ready to go to California?" And he was like, "What are you talking about?" "What are you talking about?" Like when I pressed him, he's like, "Man, I was on acid." I was on acid. I don't remember any of that. I don't have any room for you. And I begged him like my life depended on it. And he took me and this old boy who was playing guitar, actually taught me a lot of songs back then. He took us to California. But as we got closer to Boonville, and we were talking to naive young Texas boys who had never been anywhere, he realized he, you know, didn't want us going anywhere near those hippies he was living with there in Boonville. So he left us, he pulled into like a grocery store and left us in this parking lot in Vacaville. And that's when I really started hitchhiking in my life, is like when we kind of got abandoned in a parking lot.
Wow.
Kind of along the 5, right?
How old were you?
21, probably 22, something like that. And I had done a little bit of hitching before, like around South Texas and like Louisiana, but I'd never really been way out there. And anyway, I started hitchhiking around because I had to. But I remember it was in California the first time that anybody besides my mama ever looked at me playing guitar as it having any kind of value, you know, like any economic value, or like it was a trade of, you know, recognition, you know. It was kind of was the first time I was out there.
So you'd been playing about four or 5 years back then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was playing outside because our place was so small. I wasn't playing outside to like make money or anything like that. I would go to this park, had like a baseball diamond on it, sit on these bleachers or whatever. And I'll never forget the first time anybody threw like just a pocket full of change in my case. I'm sure it's because they, you know, were worried about me or felt bad for me, or whatever, you know. And it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that money hit the case and then like a light went off or anything, you know. It was a slow, gradual deal. Like I was playing outside because there wasn't enough room to play in the house or whatever, you know. And then, you know, I got in a lot of trouble with the law, which kind of put me on the road. And
what was the trouble with the law?
You know, I've said it a lot, and it's funny, I'm a lot better known than I used to be. So it's like you say stuff about your family, and they hear about it, and they get mad. But that's so funny because it's all over the internet, and they're the ones that had the government on their ass, not me. But anyways, yeah, we just kind of, you know, shit hit the fan, got up in the newspapers. My brother didn't go to high school. You know, neither my sister, neither of them went to high school. They both dropped out, you know, because I'm from South Texas. I was born in the Rio Grande Valley. They were born up in Dallas, but my mama had moved down there to South Padre Island area, McAllen, Harlingen area there. And anyway, it's poor and pretty hard living down there. And, you know, hell, I didn't wear shoes till I was like 9 or 10 years old, you know, playing outside. And my brother and sister, they're 10 years older than me, half brother and sister, and we have different daddies. And they really lived wild, you know. Things were pretty tough back then or whatever. I'm telling you that background because my brother became a hustler, you know, because he had to, because of the lack of education, lack of access, you know, because of poverty. And I've honestly always respected him for that, you know. He used to take me around door to door selling newspapers when I was 11, right? And you want to know why? Because I had broken my arm. And he realized if you carted that young boy out, it knocked everybody out. And a lot of people died. A lot of people went to prison. And, you know, we were in the paper, and I found myself not being able to get a bank account, and nobody I knew would go near me, you know. And so it ended up being like a Bob Marley type of thing, you know. Like, you know, he said, if you're not living good, travel wide. Right? And I literally just walked out of town because, you know, we had scarlet letters on our chest. That's when I really started learning how to stand behind that guitar and write songs, and slowly but surely start. I learned how to play basically in front of people, and people just were giving me money kind of over time. That, and, you know, food and shelter in exchange for my story at their back door.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. You think your family's got drama? Wait till you meet the Buckleys. I'm talking about the new Netflix drama, The Waterfront. Set in a coastal town in North Carolina, it follows the powerful Buckley family who've ruled Havenport for decades. But now their fishing empire is falling apart fast, and their legacy is on the line. There's power grabs, addiction, legacy, love. From the creator of Scream and Dawson's Creek, The Waterfront is messy, twisty, and totally binge-worthy. Watch The Waterfront now, only on Netflix.
You know?
Do you ever wonder, like, how things could have gone? Because things turned out great. Like, look, you're a popular music artist now.
Yeah.
You know, worldwide. You're famous.
I'm surprised you know what I'm surprised about? I'm surprised I never got heavily addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
I am. You know, it was my sister passed away 10 years ago from substances and hard living and all that kind of stuff. And hell, my whole family's in AA. Everybody, top to bottom, left to right, turn them inside out. I think about it a lot, but I really do, you know. And I remember I was living with that guy who was at the shanty that was playing guitar. He was on the football team. I knew him from sports. His name was Daniel Harmon. And he went out there to California with me that first time. And we were living on farms, and I was working for ganja farmers, working on horse farms, working for winemakers, all kind of people, you know, just doing grunt work for them, doing the fence work they didn't want to do, moving soil for people, you know what I mean, digging ditches, you know, laying pipe across really hard, you know, rocky roads. Not anything anybody can do. You just need, you know, broad back and, you know, to be young.
Right.
And but before I ever left Texas, I moved in with his sister, and I remember, and she was just my friend. I was never in a relationship with her or anything, but she was working at Silver City in West Dallas, the Gentlemen's Club, at 18, and making more money than anybody I'd ever seen. The girl was 18, you know, and just making crazy money. And she let me rent a room from her and kind of gave me a deal and all that. And I ended up writing a song kind of about it more recently called Easy Money that I did with Shooter on the Lonesome Rifter record. And it's kind of that thing, you know, if you're a poor kid from Texas, there's no such thing, you know, as easy money. But I can't remember why I was telling you that, but it was hard on, I just remember like you'd see like young women working in strip clubs, making big money. And the ones that I was around and have been around, very, very hard for that line of work, my line of work, your line of work, not to become addicted.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't have a problem with, you know, a lot of the best artists I ever saw struggled with addiction, you know. But I have, in that way, I have been very fortunate, very, very fortunate.
How did you avoid it?
I don't know. You know what it is, man? I never had no kind of tolerance. You know, I've always been like, I just get drunk off of one drink. It's never changed. Well, I just felt it all like really strong, you know.
That's probably good.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a survival instinct too.
I've never really thought about why, you know, but I've considered it because my brother's been through, you know, he did a lot of time in prison, and you know, my sister had, and my mama, you know, I mean, they both had their first kid, you know, when they were teenagers, you know. Mm-hmm. A lot of it I do credit to my mama, you know. It's like, you know, she told me something I remember that stuck with me. I've been saying this all the time, Joe. And like, we had a lot of trouble in our family, and a lot of people that we knew, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of trauma. But when my mama kind of got out of that, she kind of is the person in the family that said, I'm going to change the trajectory of this line now, my generation. You know, and she didn't have an education. You know, she took herself back to school after I was born, you know, and cleaned up her act and got out of it, and isolated me from a lot of that shit. And which I think is a big part of the reason that I maybe didn't.
Right, you had a role model.
Yeah, I had a role model. Yeah. You know, there was no male role models, at least not at home. They were only pro athletes and coaches at school. You know, I mean, it's increasingly difficult for young men to find strong men of courage and vision that can help them grow into good men too. I mean, it seems almost impossible these days. It's unbelievable.
It's
right?
very difficult to find in your personal life.
It's hard, man.
You have to find it in other ways. You have to find it people online.
I found it in
the world.
Athletes in like excellence in like athletics.
Right.
You know,
where the only way you can get there is hard work. Yeah.
And the odds are stacked against you, and it requires incredible focus. I mean, I think that's why I'm always so you know, in such awe of those people when they're able to succeed like that. But what I wanted to say to you that my mama said, she said, what happened to you when you were young is not your fault, but now you're a man, and it's your responsibility. And I've been living off of that, you know, for a long time, you know, because it's like if you don't take responsibility at some point, man, it'll never leave you alone.
Right. You can't think that you're a victim. Yeah. You can't think that it's not your fault. You got to take responsibility. That's hard for people to accept when they know they've been victimized. When
Yeah.
they know they've been dealt a shitty hand of cards, you can just kind of wallow in it.
Mm.
But that's a trap.
Mm.
That's a trap that'll fuck you up.
Mm.
And it'll fuck up everybody around you too.
Damn right.
Yeah. But it's a mindset thing. It's like you can think your way out of that. You have to have an example though. Either you have to be your own example, or you have to find an example of someone else who thought their way out of it.
Mm. And for my brother, for all the trouble that he's been in, you know, in a way, like, you know, I think he also was trying to help me, you know, and so, you know, his hustle and his work ethic in another sense, you know, that's been helpful to me too, you know, because I remember he used to hand out flyers and shit all over the place. And when I'd be like a teenager, he'd be like, listen to me now. If you leave an event at the other day that you're handing out flyers and you're flooding it with promotion, if you can even see that pavement underneath the, you know, pamphlets that you're handing out, you didn't promote it.
Wow.
So he used to tell me I was like 15, 16, and that mentality came in handy for me because, you know, I was just a street performer, just an itinerant performer. And, you know, I did have to learn how to market myself, you know, and part of the reason that I was, man, sometimes being underestimated is like the best thing that can happen to you, you know, because I think one of the biggest challenges for, like, in the music industry at least, is that the way the business works now is they're almost exclusively, you know, you ever seen Moneyball? Brad Pitt flick Moneyball?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How they introduced that concept of looking at the data to, like, maximize the potential of the athletes and all kind of stuff, which has totally changed the game, you know, all the games. I kind of call it money guitar, right? Which is like, you know, the business is seeding the young amateur, and for the way that they spend and invest and can move on if it doesn't work out, it's like kind of a, you know, it's kind of a pump and dump, you know? And the thing about that, I mean, it works. Like if somebody has if somebody, like some of these guys, like you mentioned Oliver Anthony and some of these guys, they have a viral hit out of nowhere. They've never played a venue or anything in their life. You know, it can happen really fast. And then obviously there's tremendous challenges, you know, down the line trying to keep that, you know, astronomical, you know, quick rise up there. But back in the day, the business deals weren't any good. You know that. They were terrible.
Right.
What they were good about, though, in a lot of cases, was developing these artists on these rosters, even if they were taking advantage of these poor farm boys, taking advantage, you know, of, you know, poor black artists from the South or women or whatever. Nobody was getting a good deal, basically. But, you know, like guys like Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings, those guys were making 2-3 records a year.
Wow.
You know,
And doing HP
you think
Chromebook
about
live
when
stream
Waylon
at
breaks
12:38.
through, right?
New
in the
live stream
mid-70s,
should be
you know,
initiated
like,
right away again,
as he's doing, you know,
unless
coming
the
into
Everett
his
Police
own
Department has other ideas.
1974,
And they so
1975.
often do, don't
I
they?
mean, how many
They so
records in
often
is
have
he at
other
that point?
ideas.
You know, he's
Actually, hold off. I'm not
you know,
ending it
Willie's
quite
Red
yet.
Stranger, which
Uno momento.
revolutionized country music, or like the Outlaws compilation record that the two of them were on together, which was basically a compilation and kind of marketed as the outlaw subgenre.
Okay, now ending it.
You know, those guys were 15, 16, 17 records in, you know. Aretha Franklin popped off on her 9th or 10th record.
Wow.
You know, and most of these artists, the way the business works, they won't make 9 or 10 records in their career.
Right.
That's crazy to me.
That is crazy. And what better way to develop than to just keep constantly producing new music and learn along the way?
In being neglected or misunderstood by the business when I was first dealing with it, it was a really really a blessing because I ended up making so many records, you know?
Yeah. The music business has always been so predatory. But it's like, it's the way I describe a lot of things. It's like when you get something that's good combined with a bunch of people that want to make money off that something that's good. You know, whether it's medicine or whether it's music or even in comedy, you get the same thing. You get a bunch of people that just think they can make money off you.
Man, I always thought comedy was the hardest. Always figured it was the hardest, right? Because you mean like you got to make them laugh or they're gonna fucking kill you.
And you have new shit all the time.
There's nothing behind you. There's not even a guitar covering you up.
Right.
It's crazy to me just to watch all those guys do their bit and shit. So like I was always amazed by it. Even people going up at like the open mics and like trying out their routine. You know, that always terrified me.
It terrifies me still when I watch open mics. I watch open mics and I watch someone bombing. I got to leave the room because I fear that it's contagious. Like if I was on the road and I didn't get to pick my opening acts, like if I was working at a club and they had some local act in Florida or something like that, and the guy was fucking terrible, I would literally have to like not listen. I'd have to leave the room and just sort of time when I was going to go on stage, so I could go on stage with a fresh mindset. I couldn't think that this audience had been poisoned by this guy's shitty comedy.
I get that.
You know what I mean? It's like it's terrible, and it's like you think that nothing could be funny.
Yeah.
It's like this, like he's hypnotized them
right
into this like mediocre state of mind. Like, I can't listen. I gotta hide.
Yeah, and it's crazy that they could have that strong an effect on the audience like that quick. I mean, somebody can be up there fucking it up like crazy musically.
Yeah.
And you kind of get a pass, you know.
Right.
You know, poetic license or whatever.
Well, you know, people, it's tolerable if the guy's into it. You know, he could be into his own music, and you're like, I'm not into it, but he's into it. At least he's like doing his song. If you're doing comedy and the audience is not into it, you're fucked. You're like really fucked. You have to engage those people.
I see that. It's unbelievable.
You got to be connected to those people, and you can't fake it. Like, you can't even be saying the words perfectly and not be thinking about it. You have to be thinking about what you're saying. They know. They're little animals. They smell you. They know. They know if you're faking it. And you just got to lock in, man. And you got to learn how to lock in. It takes about 10 years. It takes 10 years of eating shit. Just fucking bombing and traveling around and opening up for people and barely getting by.
That's the same thing with music, though, about the 10-year deal, you know, the 10,000 hour thing. There's no doubt about it.
I think it's probably almost everything.
Yeah.
Almost everything.
Anything you dedicate yourself to. You know, you like Noam Chomsky?
Yeah, sure.
Do you ever
I
see?
old Noam Chomsky.
Yeah.
I listened to him today. I'm like, Jesus, stop talking.
Yeah, he's popping off, isn't he?
Well, he just went the COVID vaccine stuff. He was out of his fucking mind. He wanted people to be isolated and quarantined and taken away from society if they weren't willing to take this fucking experimental shit.
I haven't kept up with him in recent years.
Well, he's old, right? And old people, unfortunately, also, he's an academic. So academics tend to trust experts in whatever field they're in. And if he doesn't have an understanding, like he has a deep understanding of how compromised people are politically by money, you know, and he's written some brilliant work on essentially the way the media is compromised and the way, you know, politics are compromised. I don't think he applied that same skepticism towards the pharmaceutical industrial complex.
Which is strange.
Well, people have their blind spots.
Yeah, we all do.
And they trust experts, and if he's got experts that are academics, and he trusts them, and also he's old, and old people get real scared of diseases. They get real scared because they know how fucking vulnerable they are. All the people that I knew that were old had the craziest reaction to COVID. Terrified. Even my own parents tried to talk them through some of this stuff. They didn't want to hear it. They only wanted to listen to doctors. I don't think this is what they're telling you.
Yeah.
You know?
Doctors are crazy. They got a cabinet full of pills that they've been sold to sell you.
And they're incentivized. That's what's really crazy. When I found that out, I learned so much during the pandemic about the medical industry where I just thought they were there to, I'm so naive, I didn't even realize that hospitals are privately owned. I thought these were things set up by the government to make sure that people can get healed.
Right.
You know, I thought it was all about making people better. And
Well, they're not public. The closest thing to public is if they're owned by like a, religious organization,
Right.
a church.
Yeah,
Isn't that crazy?
it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and they're just fucking shuffling people in and out, trying to prescribe them as many things, and they're financially incentivized to prescribe things. And then they have extreme overhead because they have liability insurance,
Yeah.
they have student loan debt, and they have a high overhead to keep their practice running. And
Where's Bernie Sanders when you need him?
yeah,
Well, no. See, so I had open heart surgery right here in Austin to fix a
what was wrong with your heart?
valve here. Well, I was born with Wolff Parkinson's white disease. It's an electrical issue in your heart. Basically, like your heart misfires. All this electricity is moving through it all the time. Like a semiconductor or whatever. And there was like a section of it that was like misfiring and would cause an arrhythmia with me.
Wow.
And when I was a kid in South Texas, we were told that was all I knew about. And we were told that it was an annoyance. Because I almost died a couple times when I was really, really young from it. And, my mama noticed and saved my life a couple times by driving in, into the city there in the San Benito and them hooking me up to all the wires and saving me. Anyways, they told me as I got older that it would just, I could get, an ablation for it, where they apply heat basically and close this electrical channel that's stuck in a loop or whatever. But it wasn't life threatening. And then I got out here, I was on the street for years. And then when I was coming off the street through kind of blues jams, and I had been, I was working on ganja farms and started selling, weed in the mail and all that to kind of get off the street, buy myself some better clothes, get myself a good guitar and amp and all that, started showing up at blues jams. And then I could because everything takes money, problem being a street player was you can go play the open mics that have 2 damn drink minimum.
Right.
And they'd see my crazy ass come in and knew that I was, pretty wild and they didn't have any money. And it didn't smell good. So they really didn't like me for the longest time or whatever. But through blues jams, I started leading bands in bars. Deep Ellum, first gig I ever got in Austin was right there at Darwin's Pub, on 6th Street, playing kind of solo in the afternoon. Was the only guy, CJ was the only guy that could get a gig, even on 6th Street. I always owed him for that. He just gave me $50. He wanted me to get paid out of the well whiskey and those what does he sell over there? Those gyros or whatever the hell he's got over there. Anyway, I get on the road. I get an agent. I was standing out of Green Hall handing CDs out on a street corner because I couldn't get into the show. Handed a guy a CD. His name's Evan Felker. I didn't know who he was at the time, but he's front man for Turnpike Troubadours. I gave him a CD and
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Showing my day, Joe Rogan Podcast, my night.
All day.
Yeah, but doing something at the Viper Room and then trying to come here the next day. The Viper Room is just notorious. Like, even when you're in the building, it's just like, ugh.
it is notorious.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the only way I'd ever been in there was through that, the door on the side.
text displayed on the screen with a speech synthesizer or braille display. Press the space bar to turn on Chromebox. When Chromebox is activated, we go through a quick tour.